Trump is rapidly losing his base. When we put him in office, the prevailing thought process for the entire population that voted for him was you're going to hold the traitors accountable. You're going to arrest the Obamas. You're going to arrest the Clintons. You're going to arrest Brennan. You're going to arrest everybody around Obama, and you're going to hold them accountable for the treason they committed over the last 10 years. They have all the receipts on Crossfire Hurricane. They have all the receipts on Benghazi. They have all the receipts on the Clinton malfeasance through the Clinton Foundation. They have enough right now. And just with the Epstein manifests, which nothing else, to go roll up everybody that I mentioned and then some. A lot of people that I know personally were involved in the audit here in Arizona. And that audit showed unequivocally, just a cursory review of the Smartmatic machines and the voting machines here showed that those machines were tampered with remotely from outside the US. It also showed, just the initial forensic cursory analysis showed that you can instantiate 2 operating systems on all those machines, and anybody that's using the machine in front of you would never know it. And in the background, on that other instantiated operating system, you can change the vote tallies, change the weighting of the vote tallies, so you can add. The other thing that was in the machines was the fact that there was 800 anonymous connections into the machines just in Arizona from outside the US. So those machines were being tampered with by our enemies. That's an act of war.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Every day, Tokenmetrics AI analyzes millions of data points to uncover hidden gems, delivering buy and sell signals you can trust. Our AI spots tokens before they moon, helping you stay ahead in the fast-paced crypto world. Join tens of thousands of investors who have taken their portfolios to the moon and beyond.
I am joined once again by Lieutenant Colonel retired Stephen Murray. He is a former cyber intelligence US military sort of guy. And he's gracious enough to come on once a month on my channel to talk all sorts of stuff, some of which is really on the edge, Steve.
Well, hopefully today I won't bend your mind, but I do have some administrative stuff to talk through before we get too far into this. So,
okay,
for the last 6 months or so, I've been working on building a new channel and building a media group to do 2 things, right? So I want to get out of the political spectrum where I'm talking about politics, the flavor of the day, the threat, etc. And I want to focus more on giving people information they can actually operationalize.
Mhm.
And I have like 30 guys in this roundtable group, and they're from all backgrounds: special forces, first responders, guys that were Navy sub guys, you name it. I've got a full spectrum of military guys. E.M. Burlingame's in there. Matt Bracken's in there, so it's a pretty diverse group. And we were doing roundtables for over a year, and what I realized was we do all this analysis, we do all this great work, but we don't tell people what to do with the information. And there's a host of things that, let's just face it, the public doesn't know how to do anymore, right? Because we don't teach civics in school here, and I don't know what it's like in the UK, but they've dumbed down history to the point where it's almost comical. So people don't know how to do basic things like manage money. They don't know how to deal with, car dealerships and buy a car. They don't know how to deal with mortgage companies and buy a house.
We lost you there. You dropped out. So people don't know how to get a mortgage, and then please continue.
Oh, I was saying that people don't know how to deal with mortgage companies. They don't know how to deal with ambiguity. They don't know how to deal with situation awareness, right?
Mm.
Most people don't even know how to look through the crowd or the area they're in to figure out who's a good actor and who's a bad actor, right? So this channel is going to be focused strictly on providing that kind of information, where I'll have, in fact, I've got 4 or 5 guys I'm working with around trying to create separate shows. So there'll be a show every week called The Threat, and it's 30 minutes of here's the current threat landscape, here's what it looks like across the planet. Then there's a show that's going to be on tradecraft, like this is how you stay out of the digital net, this is how you obfuscate your presence online, this is how you deal with cyber threats. And then there'll be another show on self-reliance, like this is how you live off grid, this is what it really means to live off grid, things like that. So it'll be a bullpen of shows, all be driven off of the threat profile for that week. So all the shows will be retroactive, so that they all tie into the same threat briefing, and it'll be stuff you can actually use. Like, case in point, how many people do you know how to purify water, know how to use water purification tablets, know how to use a water filter, know how reverse osmosis? Right, nobody does.
I don't.
You call the guy shows up, he installs your reverse osmosis, your water's clean, and you're good for another 12 months. We're going to teach you how to do all that. We're going to teach you how to Everything from how do you source water, how do you clean water, all those things, as well as here's how you generate power, here's how you create a lead acid battery from scratch, here's how you store power. I mean, all those things. And part of it was an extension out of audience feedback, right? We were doing these shows talking about how things were going to develop in Europe, how things were going to develop in the Middle East, how things were developing here. None of that's panning out. But the biggest feedback we got is, what do I do with this? You
Mm.
guys are giving me all this information. I don't know what to do with it. So starting on May 9th, Friday, May 9th, will be the rollout of the first show. Um, and I've gone back and forth with the name of the show. Um, but I'm going to settle in on a title here in the next couple of days. Right now, I've batted around 2 or 3 different titles anyway. But I'll do a show. 3 other guys will be doing shows, and then eventually I want to get that up to 7 or 8 different experts doing a show on the channel every single week. So there's a consistent bullpen of shows every single week at a consistent schedule. So that's what I've been working on, and I've been watching the craziness in the news just like everybody else, and it's been a wild ride. I'll tell you that much. The last
It's
couple of
been
weeks
a
have been
while,
wild.
right? Before we go to that, so people can find out by following you on X, and I'll have the link to that in the description below. Because I imagine
Right.
that's the best place, the best, most up to date place to keep up with your antics. Forgive
Yeah.
me for saying it that way.
Well, I'm raw and unfiltered on X, which my X account
Well,
will change to the path forward. The link to the path forward will be in my X account. You'll still be able to find me, but it'll be under a different name. And what I'm trying to do is disassociate myself from my military rank and my profile and make it something that's going to be lasting and bigger, right?
mhm.
Because the end state I want to reach with this is I want this to be a source of truth that people can actually use to learn how to do things and to learn how to operate in the environment we're in, because the environment's changing every day, right?
Yeah.
Economies are collapsing, the social fiber is collapsing. We're seeing more and more chaotic things happen, and the biggest thing that I've been watching, I don't know if you've seen this, is the disclosure. Seeing disclosure around things is ramping up. Like today, it was disclosed, and I'm waiting for this story to develop because it's too early to really go off of this, but it's so good. So 5 years ago, I said I was on a show called what was it called? Devolution, and it was good. The guy's is John, it's John Herod. His show was called Patel Patriot. His screen name was Patel Patriot. Anyway, I did a show almost 3 4 years ago, and at the end of the show, he said, "What do you think of all this?" I go, he was talking about devolution, where the premise was that Trump was in charge in the background, and that FEMA was really being used for continuity government, and a lot of things were being orchestrated in the background, and blah blah blah. And I said at the very end of it, which I still believe, is it's a psyop. You as a psyop, the enemy gets a vote, all this stuff briefs well, but it's just a theory.
Mhm.
Once the enemy gets a vote, you just throw the plan over your shoulder and just walk away because you're going to fight the fight. And it turns out that 4chan, where the Q thing started, was literally operated by Mossad for 5 years.
Mossad
Yep, it was hacked
again.
by a bunch. This is the best part of the story. It was hacked by leftists who got everything because it was an old version of PHP. And so they took everything and they posted all the links and all of the activity that was from where? From Israel. So Israel was posting all this stuff, and then it gets so much better because the same people that hacked it now have Blue Anon, which is the reverse of QAnon, which is the same psyop being played now. Which the latest is on 420. Of course, it's got to be 420. It can't be any other day. It's got to be Dope Day. Trump's going to declare martial law. Yeah. Okay, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So
So that's Blue Anon saying Trump's going to declare martial law on
first said
April
he
the
was going to
20th.
be arrested, never take office, just like So I have to back up because the funniest part of this story is, and I I've been an information warfare officer for a very very long time, so I like my bullshit freshly packaged and well delivered, and it's only consumable when it's freshly packaged. And man, so I went back through all the Q posts, right? So I got turned on to Q back in 2017, 2018 when my twin was still alive because he was all into that, right? He was all into disclosure and UFOs and all that crap. I'm like, this is a bunch of horseshit. And so I started reading this. I'm like, I'm sitting there flipping through these screens, and I'm like, and I look over at him. I'm like, dude, this is a psyop. This is the classic definition of a psyop. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, this is what I do for a living. Put out some bullshit that's partially true, but mostly bullshit, and people will buy into it, especially if they're sprinkled with some hopium. I'm like, dude, trust Sessions. Hillary's going to get arrested. Trust Bill Barr. These guys are deep swamp creatures. Not, I wouldn't trust them to lead me to a bathroom, let alone with anything else. And that's how I started with that, right? And then I get up and tell Patriot Show, and I'm like, yeah, this is all BS. This is a psyop. This is not real. And turns out, 5 years later, I'm proven not to be crazy. It was a psyop put on by Mossad, and
Wow.
they were gloating about it. Like 2 years
Okay.
ago, they were gloating. We create the illusion, we propagate the illusion, we sell the illusion. I'm like, yeah, you did a good job.
Wow. Okay.
And
So let me get this. QAnon was a psyop created by
Q was a
Mossad.
psyop,
4chan, a psyop created by Mossad.
operated, yeah,
Operated.
funded by USA. That's even better.
Of course, Blue Anon. Blue Anon also operated by Mossad.
I don't know, but
No,
it's the
no,
same psyop. It's
po-
just they just
pos-
reversed the game, and now they're playing it on the left, and
possibly.
they're all eating it up.
No, and then the continuity of government, all that stuff, also a psyop.
Oh yeah, it's all horseshit. If you
Okay.
know anything about FEMA, so I worked with FEMA. Let me just give you the full.
But no, but Stephen, before you get into Stephen, you and I, are we psyops? Just checking. Operated by Mossad.
No, no.
Okay, good.
I have a deep-seated hatred for all intelligence agencies, just so you know, and a strong distrust for large bureaucratic organizations. So I don't fit into that category.
Okay, and
But
I'm definitely not a large
yeah, you're too bitter.
organization.
You're too
I'd
bitter
have
to
more
be in
views. I'd have more
Yeah.
subs.
Yeah. So,
Right,
but
FEMA.
to give you the 411 on FEMA. So when that, so I read all the devolution series that he published, and John's a good guy, but he's not a military guy, right? And he hasn't been in the system, so he's looking at it from an outside perspective. And what's interesting is it's turned into a business for him, which more power to him. But as every day goes by, more and more is uncovered to say that this was a psyop. And this latest disclosure is, I mean, it just blows the doors off the whole thing. But if you understand anything about FEMA, so FEMA's whole job is about continuity of government. It's not emergency management. They suck at it. They just bring in contractors to manage it, right? And every time there's a hurricane or there's some kind of a big contingency, they just hire a bunch of truck drivers and NGOs to come in and do the work. They just manage the work. They don't actually do anything. And back in 2008, when Obama took over FEMA and took over the presidency, he gutted FEMA. And in 2013, 2012, 2013, everybody that I had worked with had left the agency. All the corporate knowledge had left. And FEMA doesn't have, people seem to think that FEMA's got this big, let's just say, series of warehouses and locations where they store everything for all their emergencies. It doesn't work that way. They have a bunch of deep holes that they dug for, continuity of government for both state, federal, and key actors in science and technology that they built over the last 60, 70 years. That's what they're managing. All this other emergency management stuff is just tertiary to what their real mission is. And since Trump's coming to town, Trump's gutting them. He's getting rid of. I thought he was going to gut the ATF, but it turns out he's put the ATF under the FBI to plus up the FBI's numbers. But
ATF, for
they're,
people who don't know, that alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all legal in this country. And why we need a police force to go police them is beyond me. I've never done the math on that. But yeah, he put the ATF under the FBI. So yeah, you could do the math on that one. Um, But all of the changes he's made since he came to office is literally he's gutting all these agencies, and he needs to, right? He needs to turn off the IRS in total because they're completely unconstitutional. They operate completely out of the Constitution, no oversight. He gutted the CFPB, which was the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Basically, it was a left-wing gangster outfit that literally would go around and intimidate all of the businesses and CEOs to adopt all these woke policies. He gutted them. He's gutting and by the way, they had a $745 million budget paid for by USAID and a surplus every single year with 50 employees. What are they doing? Yeah,
Wow, they're living the good life.
yeah, they are. So he's done all that. So he's done a lot of good things when it comes to gutting the federal government. But the other side of this too is if FEMA is not in place to do continuity of government, who's doing that mission now, and who's going to do that mission? And you got to put it in perspective. Let me put it in perspective so everybody understands why I'm saying this. Don't replace a capability, or you don't deprecate or retire a capability unless you have something better. something more sophisticated, something better, something more sustainable. And look at the SR-71. The SR-71 was retired in the 80s. It was still one of the fastest aircraft on the planet today, but it was never replaced by anything. It was supposedly replaced by satellites, but satellites have their limitations too. So you have to ask the question, what did they replace that technology with? And there was words like Aurora and other, scramjet technology that were supposed to replace it. But specifically in the case of FEMA, what capability is replacing FEMA and what organization is managing that capability? I mean, I don't disagree with Trump that FEMA needs to go away. They're just a money pit and they're a self-looking ice cream cone of dysfunction that needs to go away because there's literally no use for them unless we're planning for nuclear Armageddon or some kind of a major contingency. Clearly, we're not planning for that anymore. So the question is, what are we planning for? And that's really where the rub comes in. And when you add in all the psyops that have gone on, you add in all of the conjecture that's gone on, you can see how the Q stuff was so wildly inaccurate and so skewed towards hopium, why people have turned it into a religion, right? And that's really the problem. It's not the psyop, it's the fact that people won't believe the psyop, right? It was so effective and it was so pervasive that you have people that have made it a religion. Like they're going back to posts from 2016 today, referencing posts from 2016, still thinking there's going to be Nicera, Jacera, and all that happy horse shit, which was, it's been around. Nicera and Jacera have been around since like 2005. And it was bullshit back then. And it's even bigger bullshit now. Like, I could never figure out why people bought into the logic that the government, the same people that have been screwing you over for the last 80 years, are somehow going to give you a jubilee and pay you a bunch of money from the coffers that we don't have, which, by the way, are empty, and everybody's going to be happy.
Oh, but the Iraqi dinar.
Oh, yeah, and that one too, the dinar, and yeah. But you see my point, right? It's like nobody asks the critical question, why would they do that? And you can't correlate the current with the hopium. And that's really the problem with the psyop. It's not anything else other than that. It's the fact that people have turned it into a religion and they can't be talked off the ledge.
Well, the question about why would they do that, it diverts people's energy and attention away from real issues.
Oh yeah. That's the point, right? It's distraction. It's complete distraction. I mean, let's look at the Blue Orifice launch yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Is this with Katy Perry?
Oh God, what a sideshow!
I didn't go into that. I've just seen it across my X feed or whatever. I've not really paid any attention to it. Is that
okay? So I'm going to say this from my bitter Space Command time when I was working for Air Force Space and working around missile technology and working with missile technology. I'm just going to leave that right there. But that ship, whatever that thing was that was on the ground when they popped the door open, was not a capsule that returned to Earth through the atmosphere. There would have been burn marks on that spacecraft. Those windows would have blown out of that thing. Big picturesque windows. Yeah, I'll take flaming horrible death for 1,000, Alex. My God, what a sideshow! And they're supposed to. So they launched this missile with what, 6 women in it, and it looks like a phallic symbol. Flies up, climaxes in 3 minutes, and then comes back down, and everybody's fine.
I'm sure there's a metaphor.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. Steve, she gets out, kisses the ground, and talks about Mother Earth. God. I mean, that's not even good bullshit. It's just bullshit. I mean, come on.
There is a metaphor there for male-female sexual relations in that.
Absolutely. 3 minutes, you're done, man. It's like anesthesia. Come on.
Why do that?
It's a photo op. That's all it is, a photo op. I mean, look, I when they designed, and let me just preface this with, I'm not going down the rabbit hole of did we go to the moon, did we not go to the moon? I'm not going down that rabbit hole, even though it looks like a lot of horse shit and it was staged, and there's a lot of other things that were staged. But suffice it to say that when they built capsules before, especially something like that where you're going to have multiple people in it, you're worried about a heat shield, right? You're worried about reentry. You're not worried about going up, other than you don't want it to blow up as it's going up. And if a missile goes off axis, if the gyros go wrong and the missile goes off axis, you blow it up, right? But if you got 6 people on board, you better hope it corrects, or you have an escape mechanism so you can pop the capsule off, pop a chute, and save the crew. right? There's a whole bunch of considerations that go into building a missile, and you build the missile on the pad. And once you build the missile on the pad, you're very, very mindful about every stage that goes on, and you do check, recheck, double check, right? And you can say what you want about Elon Musk. He's had a lot of mistakes, he's a lot of failures, but those are real rockets going up because the way that they go up, the things they do, that's the real world, right? Shit blows up, ship goes off axis, things go crazy, and you're pressing the button to blow it up. I know, I've done it, right? Hey, it's off axis. You don't screw around. You don't wait for it to hit a city. You don't wait for it to go to the ocean. You blow it up. And watched that several times. You've been in the room when that's happened several times. And Air Force Space, when Air Force Space was doing launches way back when with Lockheed, with Boeing, et cetera, there was all kinds of checks and balances that were put in place to make sure that when that thing boosted off, that was going to go on axis, it was going to be on mission, it was going to be because you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in payloads going up into space. So you're very mindful. They basically strapped these 4 henches in, launched them, didn't even give it a second thought. They had like 6,000 cameras, and only 3 of them were working the whole time. Yeah, whatever, dude. I think it was all staged bullshit, and I don't know, why anybody would buy into that. Because go back to Apollo when shit dropped into the ocean. You had an aircraft carrier and helicopters going out to find the capsule, and this just lands right in front of Jeff Bezos. Get the fuck out of here.
Steve, you don't understand the power of women.
Yeah, that's
white
it.
privileged
They
male.
willed it. They willed it to be so. Yeah, Omni UHF. Go forth and communicate.
You come here with your white male privilege.
Yeah, there you go. It's white male privilege.
By the way, just to be clear, I don't ascribe to any of that nonsense, right?
I know you don't. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
So,
Just to
but my point of saying that and going down that rabbit hole is that we're still seeing the theater and the drama, right? And it's pervasive to keep people entertained. And I don't know if you saw the Real ID last week, but Real ID's been out since 2005. It's not a new thing.
Okay,
I've had it for
I've heard it's
10 years.
kind of draconian and
I've had it for 10 years, right? I'm already in the system.
right.
Military's got all my stuff, my face, everything. And I hate to say it, but we're already in the digital grid. The question really becomes, are we going to sign up for it and hand over our sovereignty, or are we going to push back? And it involves more than just tweeting, right? Well, that's really bad. We should not do that. But it really is going to boil down to, are people going to sign up or not sign up? And I've been telling people the same thing. If you're not signed up, don't comply. Mass non-comply. Because this is how the game's played. The airlines will absorb the cost. So if people stop flying because of Real ID, I guarantee you within 10 days, the airlines will say, yeah, they're killing us. If we don't do something about Real ID, then we're going to lose all these airlines. And because they're all like basically one paycheck away from being, bankrupt anyway. So I can't see them adding more stress. If you really want to stop Real ID, stop flying in mass. Stop flying. They see their flight rates drop. They see their occupancy rates, and guess what? They are going to push to get that either pushed out or removed entirely. And that's the way you fight that. And
Well, in the UK, I think they're planning in about 3 years' time. We won't be using boarding cards or passports. It'll be facial scanners to go in on and off planes.
huh?
Yeah.
You guys are going to be in a civil war long before that. I'm going to say by 27, 28, you guys are going to be in the middle of a revolution or a civil war.
In the UK or in Europe or both?
In the UK. Ireland's going to go probably this year.
Okay, why do you say that? And on what basis? I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm curious.
I say it for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're not going to get the war they need to reset the currency. And when the economy collapses, because the economy will collapse, when that happens, you're going to see, first, it's going to be chaos. Then it's going to be personal for people, and they're going to start going after the people they think are responsible. So and that's going to develop over time into probably a revolution, because this mass migration, the war in Ukraine, the consistent DEI policies, the fact that the UK is basically a communist country right now, run by communists, and what the police are doing, arresting people for just literally saying "Go Britain." I mean, how long do you think that's going to last before somebody goes off their reservation? There's not a lot of math there. And Ireland has been completely taken over by immigrants, illegals that have been bussed in, put in camps right next to cities. I mean, that's a recipe for genocide. And you're already seeing the Irish people banding together and doing patrols in their neighborhoods because the violence and the knife crimes, just like in the UK, are so bad, and the rape gangs, etc. So at some point, that's going to hit a boiling point, right? Just like it is here. If it, and I was saying this on my uh, situation report last week. That Trump is rapidly losing his base, and he's doing it. He's doing it not through um, what he's doing overseas. He's doing it through domestic policies. When we put him in office, the prevailing thought process for the entire population that voted for him was, you're going to hold the traitors accountable. You're going to arrest the Obamas. You're going to arrest the Clintons. You're going to arrest Brennan. You're going to arrest everybody around Obama, and you're going to hold them accountable for the treason they committed over the last 10 years. Then you're going to ban mRNA vaccines. Then you're going to distance yourself from Operation Warp Speed. And finally, you're going to arrest the big pharma executives, and you're going to arrest Fauci. He's done none of that. No one has been prosecuted. In fact, we're on day 80 something, no arrests. And every single day, the backlash is building in his base. And look, I know the Trump people listen to my show. I know it for a fact. And I can tell you that when Mike Flynn is coming out, General Mike Flynn is coming out saying, where are the arrests? I don't want to see you on Fox News anymore. I want you to arrest someone. And he's calling people out by name. That means that the hate and discontent is starting to grow. And I'm going to make a prediction, which I stopped doing over a year ago. And that is, if Trump doesn't change course, he will be the most despised president in American history. Because the American public is fed up with the malfeasance. They're fed up with the criminality. They're fed up with the insider trading in DC. They're fed up with the fact that we have public servants that are privately owned by oligarchs, and they don't represent the American people, and that's both federal and state. That was the mandate that people sent Trump to office with. And he's done none of those things. In fact, I know Kash Patel personally. I'm shocked that he hasn't fired anybody in the FBI. All these January 6 acolytes that were running around arresting innocent people, why are those guys still employed? In fact, one of them was promoted to the field office head in DC. I would have walked him out of the building. And I would have done it with a paint gun, popping him with paintballs all the way out the door. I mean, that's how bad it is. And you can only assume that at some point the population and the anger is going to boil over. And I'll give it till 28, and then it's a done deal.
Okay.
He won't make it through his term. There's no way.
Really? Okay. I got some questions about that. Isn't it the case that they've got to, before they can arrest these people, that they got to get the evidence together, they got everything in place to get the wheels of justice moving?
They have all the receipts. They have all the receipts. They had the receipts on. Let's start with the voting. Let's go back to 2020. So I looked over. In fact, a lot of people that I know personally were involved in the audit here in Arizona, and that audit showed unequivocally, just a cursory review of the Smartmatic machines and the voting machines here. Just a cursory review showed that those machines were tampered with remotely from outside the U.S. Point one. Point two. It also showed, just the initial forensic cursory analysis showed that you can instantiate 2 operating systems on all those machines, and anybody that's using the machine in front of you would never know it. And in the background, on that other instantiated operating system, you can change the vote tallies, change the weighting of the vote tallies, so you can add, like this is what they did with Biden. For every vote Trump got 2020, Biden got 1.5. So he was always going to be ahead because they were tallying 0.5 votes from Trump going to Biden. And that was all in the machines. The other thing that was in the machines was the fact that there was 800 anonymous connections into the machines just in Arizona from outside the US. So those machines were being tampered with by our enemies. That's an act of war. And they have all the receipts on that, as well as NSA has all of the captures. They have all of the traffic. They have all of it. They store all that. I know that because I know what they do. And I've worked with them for a very, very long time. So I know what their capabilities are. And I'm telling you, they have all the receipts, as well as they have all the receipts on Crossfire Hurricane. They have all the receipts on Benghazi. They have all the receipts on the Clinton malfeasance through the Clinton Foundation. They have enough right now. And just with the Epstein manifests, which nothing else, to go roll up everybody that I mentioned and then some, and most of Hollywood. No arrests. And this is what I would do, because mainly I'm bitter and apathetic. But I would take a brigade of whoas, and I would go to Hollywood and roll up everybody in Hollywood and take them to Gitmo and sort them out down there. And I would do the same thing with DC. I would do the same thing with the CDC. I would do the same thing with every single pharmaceutical that was involved in COVID. They are going to be, they would be cooling their heels in Gitmo, and I don't care what country they're in. I'll either issue a kill or capture order, but either way, they're going to Gitmo and they're going to face trial for crimes against humanity. And that's what I would do, right? But Trump doesn't have the stones to do it. So he's relying on Pam Bondi, the Fox News Barbie, to go out and do something other than a press conference. And she hasn't done shit yet. In fact, she hasn't done fuck all yet, which pisses people off, and it's pissing people off more and more because they're, first it was the Epstein binders. Remember that? That was a bunch of BS. Look, here's the deal with Epstein. The information's been out for over 10 years, and it's the FBI went in after Epstein died to the island, and they took droves of tapes and videos and documents and CDs, you name it. They took droves of it out. Where did it all go? And you know that it implicates almost every politician, every Hollywood star, every Hollywood mogul, banking executives, university executives, you name it. It crossed every institution in our society. So there's a whole litany of people that can be rolled up just from the video evidence. And I know they haven't. They haven't destroyed. Well, maybe they did destroy it, but there's enough there to go after a dozen people right now without breaking a sweat. And that's what most Americans have realized.
So why isn't he doing it? Because with regards to Trump and Epstein, one of the things I've heard from Johnny Vedmore, who's an investigative journalist in the UK, is that Trump has his own ties with Epstein, but was distanced himself before Epstein became public.
Well, let me qualify that. So if that was true, and Trump went to the island, and Trump had sex with underage
Trump went to
girls,
one of his houses, I think in Florida or in New York or whatever.
okay. If that's true and something happened, don't you think it would have made it public by now? After 4 years of him in office the first time, and then 4 years of him in Mar-a-Lago, that would have come out. I'm sorry, that would have come out if it was real. But and let me qualify that so everybody understands why I'm saying it that way. To operate in New York City, especially in real estate, you have to operate within strata, right? So every layer of rich people, institutional money is what is called. These are people that are old families, old money. They've been around for generations. They're still in power. Still have to ingratiate yourself all the way up the chain in the strata, right? Trump's down here. The strata goes way up here, and we're talking old family, Archibalds, Rothschilds, etc. Right? So you have to ingratiate yourself to all these people. So you jump around on other people's jets when your jet's broken. So you affiliate and go to people's places, regardless of who it is. You'll go affiliate with them because that's just part of the culture. And so I'm sure there's some of that going on with Trump. I'm sure Trump was they tried to lure him into it, but it probably wasn't his shtick. So he said, okay, I'm not going to do this. And that's why he distanced himself. It could be a myriad of things, right? It could be harmless or it could be harmful. Either way, it doesn't matter. If something happens, it needs to come out. Sorry. But if you're having sex with underage kids, if you're raping, torturing, and mutilating children, I don't care what strata you're in. You go to prison. Period. Full stop. And I don't care if it hurts your reputation, your family reputation, or your legacy. You go to prison. And
Okay.
that's where this has to go.
So then why isn't Trump rolling up these people and arresting them?
You want my honest opinion?
Mm-hmm.
My honest opinion is because all roads lead back to Mossad and MI6, and they do not want this to go back to Israel. And from what I understand, there's over 100 people right now that are redacting the Epstein files and removing everything that's related to Israel. Everybody knows Mossad ran the operation. Everybody knows that just Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, was a Mossad agent. There's no secret there, right? Everybody knows it. But the real question is, and this is the real problem, for Trump to acknowledge that, you have to acknowledge that's an act of war. Because one of our allies compromised our election process, our elected officials, our federal government, and then you have to look at AIPAC having handlers for every single senator and congressman in Washington, D.C. So you have to account for that, which is also an act of war. So Trump's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He's already proclaimed that Israel is the one ally we have to fiercely protect, which everybody in America is like, no, we don't. We've had enough of Israel. Thank you. And it's really not we've had enough of Israel. We've had enough of the Netanyahu government is what we've had enough of. But he puts a Israeli Jew in charge of the Anti-Semitism Council. What does that tell you? Again, AIPAC, Mossad, Netanyahu. So he's not going to roll anybody up associated with that, even though most of them are probably Jews that need to be rolled up because they committed a crime, right? It's the separation of the criminality from the person. And he can't. He's created an existential crisis for himself because the public's clamoring for activity, clamoring for arrest, and he can't arrest anybody, at least not in that circle. And everybody knows that that circle needs to be rolled up. And to add insult to injury, you have Eric Weinstein going on. I think it was Joe Rogan. It was either Joe Rogan or I think it was Joe Rogan. He goes on Joe Rogan and he says, the Jewish people are the most traumatized in the world. And when you look at the culture, you have to accept certain things. One, we're really good with money. Two, we're really good with business. Three, we're philanthropists. But four, there's always some criminality that goes along with that. I mean, literally said the quiet part out in an open forum, basically parroting what Mossad had already said in social media, which is they're beating the drum that this criminality goes along with all the good things. So don't look at this, but look at the good things that we're doing. And my answer to that is stop doing illegal shit, and we won't be clamoring for people to be arrested. And you don't get to dismiss it away because you're the victim. Sorry, you're not the victim anymore. We're tired of that narrative. We're tired of listening to it. Pass all the anti-Semitic laws that you want. We are still going to disclose the fact that this criminality happened and you were responsible for it. And look, I don't blame the whole country, but the government and the Jewish mafia here are the ones that perpetrated it. They need to be held to account. That's not holding the whole population to account, but you need to hold the people that are responsible to account. And that's the part that's starting to boil over because you have more people that were staunchly in Trump's camp that are now moving the other way, and it's because the propaganda war has been completely lost by the Netanyahu government. He can't explain away the fact that he's committed genocide in Gaza. There's no explanation for it that's okay. And the American people and the rest of the world see it. What I'm surprised at from this conversation is that none of the Arab world has stepped in. Not one country.
The Houthis.
Yeah, a bunch of tribesmen. What about Saudi Arabia? What about Turkey? What about Egypt? I mean, really? Nobody stepped in and said, knock it off? Really? I mean, that's the part that bothers me the most is the world is watching this. Real time, they're watching them drop bombs on hospitals, drop bombs on camps, bulldoze people. And even if it's not true, the damage is done. And in an information war, you would think that they would be doing their level best to hide some of it, but they're literally chanting. I mean, passing laws to sexually rape males in a prison and then dancing about it on social media. It's ludicrous. I mean, you don't fight an information war like that. You don't even talk about it in that context, right? Remember Abu Ghraib? Remember the prisoner torture and the things that they were doing? You know what really happened at Abu Ghraib that they didn't want us to talk about? They don't want anybody to talk about? The staff was having orgies in front of the prisoners. They didn't want anybody to know that shit. And the females that were there, I think there was two of them, both got pregnant because they were screwing around in front of the inmates. I mean, it was just a big mess. And that's not even the waterboarding and the other stuff that they were doing. And look at how much damage that did to the effort there, right? I mean, he didn't have any credibility for almost 2 years after that. And I can't imagine what this is going to do to the Jewish population around the planet now, because they've been trying to basically whitewash it and say, yeah, it didn't happen. When the rest of the world knows that, there's going to be a boiling point where it's not going to be safe for the Jewish people to walk around. Right. And it's unfortunate because they could have put a stop to this and done something about Netanyahu.
Well, I think, Stephen, just on that point, there's this conflation. People don't separate Zionism from Judaism.
It doesn't matter.
I know they don't, right? And the Jews will suffer because of Zionism.
Right, exactly. And the whole Zionist Jewish conversation, that's a 2-hour conversation just to explain the differences. And that's the other problem that Trump has. He's surrounded himself with Zionists. And he can't back away from that. He can't just say, oh, yeah, I've screwed up. I mean, but the one that's going to send this kinetic, it's not going to be that. Not here anyway. What I see taking us kinetic is going to be the mRNA vaccines, because there's a portion of the population that is, in fact, there's a portion of the population that's starting to wake up. And I'll give you a case in point. Mm-hmm. So do you know who Mike Benz is? He's a former State Department guy, talks about censorship, talks about the censorship machine. The bulk of my family is staunchly liberal. And I'm getting calls from family members and friends now that are liberals going, dude, we owe you an apology. We were talking about this stuff 10 years ago and 5 years ago. We weren't listening. And now it's right in our face. They've been lying to us about everything. I'm like, yeah. And you got the vaccine. So you should get your affairs in order, because if you've taken boosters, you've taken the vaccine, at some point you're either going to have heart failure, you're going to have some kind of cognitive decline, or you're just going to stroke out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So take your poison, but at least you're awake for the last dose. And it's unfortunate, but what's going to happen in my mind is somebody that took the shot has lost some family members, lost some friends, more importantly, lost a child because of it. They're going to go off the reservation, and it's going to get very personal for them. That's usually how that starts. And I think that's what's going to send us into the kinetic side. I don't think it's right on the horizon, but I could tell you this summer is going to be a bumpy ride because of all the things I'm seeing right now. So it'll be a very interesting 2 years. I think the UK by 28, you're in a revolution. I think Ireland this year, revolution. And I could be wrong, could stretch into 26, but the Irish are getting just fed up as the Americans are, and the Irish don't screw around. They're going to fight.
But they have to. They have to. It won't be because it won't be the. They don't want to go through anything like the Irish potato famine with the British stealing food, starving the locals.
Nope. Well, got a country full of milk, and chances are they're probably armed. So there's gonna be some initial losses, and then you'll. And this is what I love about the Irish is they're very creative and adaptive, and they're resilient. So they'll figure out a way to arm themselves, and then they're going to take the fight to the enemy. And all of these fly-by-night, jihadists are going to be running for the border as fast as they can because there's not going to be any mercy, and there shouldn't be. That's how I think that's going to go. And I'm not the one. I'm not the only one saying that. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
No, I get it. I've been to Ireland many, many times. Beautiful, beautiful country.
Yeah.
What the globalists have done the last few years, they've ruined it. Absolutely ruined it.
Well, they've installed puppets, right?
Yeah.
Look at what's going on in France. I mean, France is the same way. So there's all of this is coming to a culmination point, regardless of what they think. And the piece that we haven't talked about yet is the disclosure piece around other things, right? The disclosure around 4chan, that's just one disclosure.
Before we go to that, I want to go back to the mRNA because I've had, if I remember now, 45 people I knew before lockdown who've had the injections, who've been hurt by the injections. 2 of them died. Every single member of my family, and I have a pretty large family, apart from the people in this household, my wife, my sister, my son, and my daughter, have had at least one shot. Everybody in Pakistan, in the US, in the UK. And I hear commentators talking about there's going to be a sudden die-off.
It's been going on. It's
No,
been going on
like
since 21.
there's a point where it's just going to accelerate and it's going to become so noticeable. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I can completely get if someone's had their, been tricked into poisoning themselves and their kids, they're going to go apeshit. They got nothing to lose.
That's right. That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying earlier. Somebody will go off the reservation because they have nothing. And look, I've had 2 friends die from the vaccine. One I had words with before she got it because I get her 3rd boost. I had to. She had healthcare. Literally, she got it on a Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, she was gone. A friend of mine, I went with him to get a shot. Tried to convince him all the way there not to get it. He got the shot. Didn't even make it to the parking lot. He's like, I don't feel good. Collapsed. He was gone. They worked on him for gave him CPR. Literally, me and two other nurses gave him CPR for almost 10 minutes. He's gone. Turned out he had a massive blood clot in his heart, and there's no way we could repair his heart. So, and that's just in 2021. In 2022, there's probably 5 of my friends, a couple of my military buddies. Just one guy was in the pool, like just came back from a temporary duty in Hawaii, swim in the pool with his wife, heart attack, gone. And it was like 2 days after he got his 2nd shot. Other guys have heart issues. In fact, one of the guys that put me in the military and got me through school, he got the shot. Now he's got heart issues. He's got, the what do you call it? The common heart issue. I can't think of it.
Myocarditis.
And myocarditis. Yeah, thank you. And he's tip of the iceberg, but thousands of people have been injured by it. That's why. That's why the anger and discontent is building against RFK and against Trump. Because every time, and he had Albert Bourla in the White House when they did an announcement. Why didn't they roll the guy up right there? Just arrest him and take him off to jail. Why are you screwing around with this guy?
Yeah, and Trump's chief of staff is ex-Pfizer.
Susie Wiles?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she both left and she's why is she still there? But that explains why Borla was there, right? They're kowtowing to big pharma, and there's going to be a point where the noise is so loud, but more importantly, the violence ramps up, where he's going to have to deal with that. And I've been trying to tell him in my sit reps, you got to start paying attention. And and this is the kicker. John Rich from Big and Rich, right? Sitting next to Trump at dinner. There's a video, a couple of videos on X where he's describing the conversation. He literally sat next to Trump at dinner and said, "The reason why you get booed at all of your rallies when you talk about the vaccines is that because your base, your entire base, believes that the vaccines are toxic, they're killing people, and pharmaceuticals are getting away with it. And that's why they boo you, because they want you to ban them." Trump didn't do anything. Think after that conversation, Trump would have heard it, had done something, but he hasn't. And it's unfortunate because we're in a space where the whole, and this is going to sound woo, but it's true. We're in a transformation point as a society and as humanity. We're in a transformation point where we're starting to ascend up the ladder, and we're starting to move away from the old superstitious beliefs and the old caste system and the old system of control, and we're moving into a new space where those control measures don't work anymore. And regardless of what the elite want to do and the tech bros want to do, they're never going to get their utopian society because humanity, and I saw this in Iraq, you would think that these knuckleheads would have figured this out. You know what I saw in Iraq when they tried to impose Sharia law? Everybody just ignored them. And when they started to beat people in the streets, they got shot. The sheikhs would bring their militias out and they would shoot those guys. Like, if you're going to enforce Sharia law, you do it on our terms. Tell you when that's going to happen. Otherwise, you get shot, or you end up in a trunk and you're in the desert in a hole. But we're not doing that here, right? Every single time they tried to do it, they'd hang the banners, the martyr banners, Mosul University, and the sheikhs would go rip it down and beat up either the religious leader or the Ayatollah that posted that, and it stopped. So we never had to worry about that because the sheikhs, the tribal leaders, are the ones that took care of it, right? And it's because they don't want that. They don't want to live under that, right?
Mm.
That's just a bunch of extremists that have gone off to college for their first year and they're all partying at everybody else's expense. The Iraqis had had enough of that. The Kurds had had enough of that, and now with the new set of malcontents in Syria that are CIA MI6 funded, we'll see how long it lasts there before they get thrown out. But we're seeing a transformation, and that transformation is happening regardless of their best efforts to try and control people.
Yeah.
And I keep reminding people that the best thing you can do is not pick up arms. It's just don't comply. But if the entire population doesn't comply, what are they going to do? They're going to roll everybody up. Good luck with that. Let me know how that works out for you. So they're not going to be successful. That's the short answer. But they're going to try.
Yep, they're going to try. They're going to do a lot of damage between now and then, but they're not going to be successful. And it was the mass non-compliance that defeated lockdown and the masking and the injection mandates, all that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you were going to say about disclosures. So what about other disclosures?
Well, I think so. I've been talking about this for 2 years. It's finally starting to come to fruition. I should have said originally 2 years from now when I talk about this that's really when you can start seeing it. But in the summer of 2022, we started seeing disclosures around the Biden family. We started seeing disclosures around technology. We started seeing disclosures around politicians and their malfeasance. And now that's ramping up, and and I don't know who's driving it. This is the part that's getting under my skin. But they're driving technology. You could tell there's a concerted effort to hidden technology and out ever behind the hidden technology. And I say that for a couple of reasons. And you listen to some of the, like Alex Jones and some of these other guys, they're talking about breakaway societies and that there's $5+ trillion that's vanished, gone into the building these societies. I don't know how much of that's true. In fact, I don't know if any of it's true. I do know this. I have personally seen technology that will never make the light of day that was light years ahead of where we were, light years ahead of where we are now. It wasn't operational. It was way back in the 90s. So I can only imagine that technology was not only operationalized, it's being used, and it's being used probably in a variety of places. But that said, there's disclosure around that technology starting to come out. And I don't know who's driving it, but it seems like every day there's more and more disclosure, just like there's more and more information coming out about our activities with both NASA, our activities with space, our activities with underwater, deep sea diving, deep sea activities, and more that's coming out. It's not a trickle anymore; it's starting to be a fountain. And I would imagine by June, July, that will be just a waterfall of information. At least that's what it looks like right now. Because I'm seeing, and here's why I say that: I'm seeing stuff that it's not just grounded; it's factual, right? Like this Giza thing with the pyramids and the structures under the pyramids. I don't know how much of that I believe, but there's one way to figure it out if it's true or not. Go dig some holes.
Yeah.
Go dig down to those pillars if they're there and prove it, right? All you're doing, you're not hurting the pyramids. Go dig a hole. I mean, they got mining technology that can go under there and find that. Why not do it, right? At some point, there's going to be a demand for that to happen. And when it does, and it's proven, then we're going to realize that most of our history that we've been told is a lie and that we've been lied to about everything. Technology, our history, how things were built, how, structures underground that are probably still underground, that are still in use, that are probably centuries old, that we probably haven't even known about. And I did several shows. Everybody thought I was nuts when I did them, but I was trying to prove a point, right? So when you, when you conduct an information campaign, influence operation, psychological operation, you're playing people's biases and their belief systems against them, and you're using it so that they question themselves, the people around them, and the movement that they're a part of, right? Because the whole point of a psyop is to get them to fight amongst each other and to believe things that aren't real, so that they turn on each other and you don't have to attack them. In this case, if people saw the truth, I don't think their bias and their belief system would allow them to believe it, even if they did see it. I mean, just look at the response to the Giza disclosure. If it's real, again, let me caveat that I don't know if it's real or not, but that disclosure will change humanity, because everything we've been told about science, everything we've been told about the pyramids, everything we've been told about our history is a lie at that point, because it means they've known it. And it's like the disclosure around Hitler, right? So Argentina releases documents that say Hitler not only survived the war, but he lived another 20 years and had 2 kids. Now, the part about that, and there's a lot, by the way, there's a lot of people that are like, no, that's not real. Well, my question is, why now? Why was that released now? And more importantly, here's the bigger question. Let's say all that's true. Let's say he lived through the war. And Jerome Corsi wrote a book on this that's very compelling, that says what submarine took him there, how long after the war, how long it took him to get down there, how many Nazis are down there, which Nazis are down there. I mean, he did it by the numbers, called it out. And I think Corsi was probably closer to the truth than anyone else. And that said, that means that if Hitler was still alive, that means Mossad, MI6, CIA, especially Alan Dulles, and most of Congress and the president knew that guy was alive, which means somebody had to watch him, protect him, and make sure the secret was never disclosed, which means there's a whole infrastructure that was put in place around him to make sure the secret was never exposed to the rest of the world. I mean, you're talking about the Nazi, the guy. He's the guy that everybody wanted dead at the end of World War II. And you're telling me that Stalin didn't know, Roosevelt didn't know, Truman didn't know, Churchill didn't know that this guy escaped the war? They bought the story that he died in the bunker? I mean, you can start to see how the second and third order effects of that disclosure will change the entire description and religion of the state around World War II. Because what's the religion of the state? The religion of the state is Nazis are bad, Allies are good, Churchill was good, Roosevelt was good, Truman was good, Stalin was a douchebag, and we won the war. Full stop. That's it. That's the religion. Throws all of that out the door, literally out the door. Because if he really survived, what does that say about our history? How much of World War II was fabricated? How much of the Holocaust was fabricated? How much of the Nazi war crimes were fabricated? And it's already been proven that a lot of the gas chambers were inoperable and not able to really gas people without gassing the guards.
Well,
So
Steve, just on that, right, and we are going to have to finish up because it's got a hard stop, right? It
Yeah,
is.
no worries.
You don't need to to inject a room with Xylon gas. You just need to put loads of people in there and seal it.
Yeah,
That'll do it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my point of saying that is, and I'll finish up with this. My point of saying that is, if that's true, then that means that everything we know about the end of World War II was a lie. And how many people are already trying to debunk the disclosure from Argentina? And if you ask anybody in Argentina, they will tell you, especially the old school, they will tell you, yeah, he survived the war. Everybody knew it. This is the best known secret in Argentina. He lived right here. Like it wasn't a big deal. So yeah, who knows if it's true or not? But it's my point is, if you do hear the truth, would you believe it? And that's why this disclosure is going to be so important, because it's going to have to be backed up with proof so people can believe it. And I'm not talking about little green men. I'm talking about technology that's been sequestered away from humanity that will revolutionize the way that we live.
That is.
And it's there,
Right.
right? It's there. So
That is.
anyway, I'll leave you on that one.
Stephen, thank you so much. It's been once again a joy and an education. I'll have the link to your X and your Rumble channel, and people can find you there. Please go and follow his work, and look forward to having you back on again, Steve. Really appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely, brother. Yep. See you next month.
Bye bye. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make war history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. And let's make war history.